The cookbook hit the hardwood floor with a sound that made everyone in the room jump. Not because it was heavy. Because something fell out of it. A folded yellow note. My older brother, Daniel, lunged toward it before anyone else could move. "Don't touch that." His voice cracked. The room went silent. For a moment, nobody breathed. The funeral guests had all gone home. The casserole sat untouched on the kitchen counter. Flowers crowded every surface. My mother's favorite wind chime rattled outside the window. And there we were. 3 grown children standing in our dead mother's kitchen. Staring at a note that had fallen from an old cookbook. I looked at Daniel. Then at my younger sister, Beth. Both of them looked terrified. Not sad. Terrified. "What is it?" I asked. Daniel quickly grabbed the note and stuffed it into his pocket. "Nothing." "Then why are you shaking?" "I'm not." He was. His hand trembled so badly that the corner of the paper remained visible from his jacket pocket. Beth crossed her arms. "We should throw that thing away." I stared at her. "The cookbook?" "Yes." The answer came too fast. Too rehearsed. Too strange. My mother had loved that cookbook more than anything she owned. And now both of my siblings wanted it gone. Immediately. A chill crawled down my spine. Something wasn't right. Something hadn't been right for a very long time. I just didn't know it yet. My name is Emily Parker. I was 37 years old when my mother died. Until that week, I believed I knew everything about my family. I was wrong. The cookbook sat on the kitchen table between us. Its red leather cover was worn smooth from decades of use. I remembered sitting on the counter as a little girl while Mom baked apple pie. I remembered flour on her cheeks. I remembered her laughing when I accidentally used salt instead of sugar. Most of all, I remembered how fiercely she protected that cookbook. Nobody was allowed to touch it. Not even Dad. Especially not Dad. Back then, I thought it was because the recipes were special. Now I wasn't so sure. Mom wanted me to have it. I broke the silence. Daniel looked up sharply. "No." "What do you mean, no?" "It should be destroyed." The words echoed through the kitchen. Destroyed. Who says that about a family cookbook? Beth nodded immediately. For once, Daniel is right. I laughed nervously. "You two sound insane." Neither of them smiled. Daniel stepped closer. "Emily." His voice dropped. "If you loved Mom, you'll burn it." The room suddenly felt smaller. Hotter. I looked from one sibling to the other. "What are you hiding?" Nobody answered. Outside, thunder rolled across the sky. Daniel grabbed his keys. "I'm leaving." "Daniel." "Burn the book." He walked out. The front door slammed behind him. A moment later Beth followed. Leaving me alone. Alone with the cookbook. And 1,000 questions. That night I couldn't sleep. The funeral exhaustion should have knocked me out. Instead, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. Thinking about Daniel's face. Thinking about Beth's fear. Thinking about that note. At 2 in the morning I gave up. I made coffee. Pulled the cookbook onto my lap. And opened it. The first pages contained exactly what I expected. Pie recipes. Cookie recipes. Holiday dinners. My mother's handwriting danced across every page. I smiled despite myself. Then something caught my eye. A corner. Tiny. Barely visible. Tucked between 2 pages. A folded piece of paper. My pulse quickened. I carefully pulled it free. The paper was yellow with age. The handwriting was unmistakable. Mom's. I unfolded it. And read. Emily. If you're reading this, then I'm gone. And if your brother and sister tried to stop you, it means they already know the truth. My heart stopped. I read the line again. Then again. The truth? What truth? My hand shook as I continued. Every recipe in this book hides a secret. Some secrets belong to me. Some belong to your father. Some belong to all of us. You deserve to know them. Even if the others don't want you to. I stared at the words. A knot formed in my stomach. I turned the page over. There was more. Find the recipe for Sunday pot roast. That's where the lies begin. The lies begin. What did that even mean? I flipped through the cookbook. Hundreds of recipes. Dozens of handwritten notes. Finally I found it. Sunday pot roast. A recipe we ate almost every week growing up. There was nothing unusual about the page. Until I looked closer. Tiny writing had been squeezed into the margin. So small I almost missed it. My mother's handwriting. I leaned closer. And started reading. June 12, 1989. Your father never lost his job. That was the story we told the children. The truth is much worse. I froze. My father had supposedly lost his job when I was 4. The family story had been repeated for decades. Dad got laid off. We struggled. Mom worked extra shifts. End of story. Except apparently it wasn't. My chest tightened. I kept reading. He disappeared for 6 months. He left us voluntarily. And he wasn't alone. The coffee mug slipped from my fingers. It shattered against the kitchen floor. Hot coffee splashed across the tiles. I didn't even notice. Because my entire childhood had just cracked open. My father hadn't lost his job. He had abandoned us. And that was only the first secret. At the bottom of the page, my mother had written one final sentence. If you think this is painful, don't read page 47. I slowly turned toward page 47. And suddenly wished I hadn't. I stared at page 47 for almost 10 minutes before I found the courage to turn it. The kitchen was silent except for the ticking clock above the stove. The broken coffee cup still lay scattered across the floor. I didn't care. My father had abandoned us. Not because of unemployment. Not because of bad luck. Because he chose to. And somehow my mother had convinced all 3 of us to believe something completely different. What else had she hidden? Slowly, I turned to page 47. The recipe title read, Mom's Christmas Cinnamon Rolls. My favorite. Every Christmas morning for as long as I could remember. Under the ingredients list, another handwritten note waited. Larger this time. As if Mom wanted to make sure I couldn't miss it. I began reading. December 25, 1994. Emily was too young to understand. Daniel was old enough to remember. Beth was old enough to suspect. That Christmas wasn't supposed to happen. My stomach tightened. I kept reading. 3 days before Christmas, your father came back. Not because he missed us. Because she left him. The air seemed to leave my lungs. She left him. Who? The answer came immediately. The woman he abandoned us for. I swallowed hard. Mom continued. He arrived at our front door crying. Begging. Promising. Lying. Again. I almost sent him away. Maybe I should have. Maybe all of our lives would have been different. My eyes burned. I could practically hear my mother's voice. Not angry. Tired. Heartbroken. A woman carrying pain she never allowed anyone else to see. Then I noticed another line squeezed into the bottom margin. Ask Daniel what he remembers about Christmas morning. The page trembled in my hands. Daniel knew. That's why he wanted the cookbook destroyed. He already knew. Or at least part of it. At 7:30 that morning, I drove to Daniel's house. I didn't call first. I knew if I warned him, he'd disappear. The way he always did whenever conversations became uncomfortable. His truck sat in the driveway. Good. I marched up the front steps and knocked. No answer. I knocked again. Still nothing. Then the front door opened. Daniel stood there in sweatpants. His eyes widened instantly. You read it. Not a question. A statement. You knew. His face turned pale. Emily. You knew Dad abandoned us. His shoulders dropped. For several seconds he didn't speak. Then he stepped aside. Come in. That alone told me everything. If he planned to deny it, he wouldn't have invited me inside. The house smelled like coffee. His wife, Rachel, looked up from the kitchen. The moment she saw our faces, she quietly disappeared upstairs. Smart woman. She knew trouble when she saw it. Daniel sat heavily on the couch. For the first time in my life, he looked older than his 43 years. Tired. Defeated. Ashamed. When did you find out? I asked. He rubbed his face. When I was 14. I felt sick. 14. That meant he'd known for nearly 30 years. You lied to me. I was protecting Mom. You lied. His jaw tightened. You think I wanted to? I didn't answer. Because honestly? I didn't know anymore. Daniel stared at the floor. I overheard them fighting. His voice barely rose above a whisper. Christmas Eve. A cold feeling crawled through me. What did you hear? He laughed bitterly. Everything. The memory clearly haunted him. Even now. I got up to get water. His eyes remained fixed on the carpet. Mom was crying. I had almost no memories of my mother crying. The thought alone hurt. Dad kept apologizing. Daniel swallowed. Then Mom said something I'll never forget. He looked directly at me. You didn't leave us because you were unhappy. You left because she was younger. The room spun. Younger. Suddenly my father transformed from a struggling husband into something else entirely. Someone selfish. Someone cruel. Daniel continued. Dad begged her not to tell us. I sat silently. He said kids didn't need to know. And Mom agreed? He nodded slowly. She said protecting us mattered more than exposing him. Tears filled my eyes. That sounded exactly like her. Sacrificing herself. Protecting everyone else. Even people who didn't deserve it. Then why keep secrets in the cookbook? Daniel's face changed. Fear flashed across it. Real fear. The same fear I'd seen after the funeral. Because those aren't all her secrets. A chill rushed through me. What does that mean? He stood abruptly. No. What? You need to stop. I laughed in disbelief. There it is again. Emily. Stop reading. Burn the book. Forget everything. His voice rose. Yes. The force of it startled both of us. For several seconds neither spoke. Then he whispered. You have no idea what's coming. My pulse quickened. What aren't you telling me? Daniel looked toward the window. As if considering whether to run. Finally he said. Have you read the peach cobbler recipe yet? I frowned. No. His expression collapsed. Oh God. What? He closed his eyes. Then whispered 5 words that made my blood run cold. Beth doesn't know she's adopted. Silence. Absolute silence. I stared at him. Waiting for the punchline. Waiting for him to laugh. Waiting for something. Anything. Instead, tears filled his eyes. And suddenly I knew he wasn't joking. My little sister. The girl who looked nothing like either parent. The girl Mom always seemed slightly overprotective of. The girl who spent her entire life feeling different. Adopted. I stumbled backward. No. It's true. No. Emily. My entire childhood began rearranging itself in real time. The family photos. The awkward comments. The strange silences. The things I'd never noticed before. Oh my God. Daniel grabbed my arm. That's why the cookbook has to disappear. I looked at him. Completely stunned. If Beth finds out. The front door suddenly opened. Both of us froze. A familiar voice echoed through the hallway. What am I supposed to find out? Beth. Standing 10 feet away. Holding the cookbook. And judging by the look on her face. She had already heard enough. The room went silent. Not the ordinary kind of silence. The kind that feels alive. Dangerous. Heavy. Beth stood frozen in the doorway. The cookbook pressed against her chest. Her eyes moved from me to Daniel. Then back again. What am I supposed to find out? Nobody answered. Daniel looked like he might collapse. I couldn't breathe. The secret had escaped. There was no putting it back. Beth took a slow step forward. What did you mean? Daniel swallowed. Beth? No. Her voice cracked. No more half-truths. She tossed the cookbook onto the coffee table. It landed with a thud. What is going on? For a moment I considered lying. Just like Mom had. Just like Dad had. Just like everyone else apparently had. But something inside me refused. Too many lies had already poisoned this family. I looked directly at my sister. Then said the words. Mom wrote something in the cookbook. Beth frowned. What? I forced myself to continue. She wrote that you're adopted. The world stopped. I watched the color drain from Beth's face. Watched her blink. Once. Twice. As if her brain couldn't process what she'd heard. Then she laughed. A short nervous laugh. That's ridiculous. Neither Daniel nor I spoke. Her smile disappeared. No. The realization hit her slowly. Painfully. Oh my God. She looked at Daniel. Tell me she's wrong. His silence answered for him. Beth staggered backward. No. Tears instantly filled her eyes. No. Her voice broke. No. She grabbed the nearest chair to steady herself. For several seconds she simply stood there shaking. Then came the question. The question every adopted child eventually asks. Who am I? Nobody had an answer. 3 hours later, Beth sat in my kitchen staring at the peach cobbler recipe. The note was real. Mom's handwriting. Mom's confession. There was no denying it. Beth had read every word. Over and over. Until the page itself looked exhausted. Finally she spoke. Did she love me? My heart shattered. What? Her eyes remained fixed on the paper. Was I just some replacement child? I immediately reached across the table. Beth. Nothing. Look at me. Slowly she raised her head. Tears streamed down her cheeks. I need to know. I squeezed her hand. Mom adored you. The answer came without hesitation. Because it was true. Nobody doubted that. Not even for a second. But Beth wasn't finished. Then why hide it? That question lingered in the air. Neither of us had a good answer. Mom had spent decades protecting secrets. Maybe she'd convinced herself she was protecting people too. Sometimes those aren't the same thing. Beth suddenly stood. I'm reading the rest. Daniel, who had been pacing the room for nearly an hour, stopped immediately. No. She laughed bitterly. Still trying to stop me? Beth? No. She pointed toward the cookbook. How many more lies are in there? Nobody knew. But we were about to find out. For the next 2 hours we turned pages. Recipe after recipe. Secret after secret. At first the revelation seemed small. Family arguments. Financial problems. Old betrayals. Then things became stranger. Much stranger. A handwritten note hidden beside a banana bread recipe revealed that our parents had secretly sold our childhood home twice. Another tucked into a soup recipe exposed a bitter feud between Mom and her own sister. Then we found something that changed everything again. It was hidden behind a recipe for blackberry jam. A folded letter. Different from the others. Longer. More detailed. The date at the top caught my attention immediately. August 2003. I unfolded it carefully. And started reading aloud. If Emily finds this before I can tell her myself, then I've failed. My stomach tightened instantly. Failed? To tell me what? The room grew quiet. Every eye focused on the page. I continued. Emily believes she remembers her childhood exactly as it happened. But memory is a fragile thing. Especially after trauma. I stopped reading. What? Daniel looked confused too. Beth leaned forward. Keep going. I swallowed. There was suddenly a terrible feeling growing inside me. Like standing at the edge of a cliff. I continued. The accident changed everything. The doctors said she was lucky to survive. They were wrong. The luck belonged to the rest of us. Because Emily forgot. The words blurred. Forgot what? My hands trembled. I forced myself onward. Your father begged me never to tell her. He said some wounds should remain buried. For years I agreed. Now I'm not sure. My pulse thundered in my ears. What accident? I looked up. Nobody answered. Daniel looked just as confused as I was. Beth too. Neither of them knew. Which meant whatever this was. Mom had hidden it from all three of us. I returned to the page. Then I found the final paragraph. And my entire world tilted sideways. The child who died that day wasn't supposed to die. Emily was. Silence. Absolute silence. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. I stared at the sentence. Certain I had read it wrong. Certain my exhausted brain had misunderstood. The child who died that day wasn't supposed to die. Emily was. What child? Beth whispered. No one knew. The room suddenly felt too small. Too hot. Too bright. I continued reading desperately. Searching for answers. But there weren't any. The note ended there. No explanation. No names. Nothing. Just one horrifying sentence. I slowly lowered the paper. My hands shook uncontrollably. Daniel looked pale. Beth looked terrified. And for the first time since Mom's funeral, I felt genuine fear. Because whatever secret Mom had been hiding all these years, it wasn't about Dad. It wasn't about adoption. It wasn't even about betrayal. It was about me. And apparently, someone had died in my place. Just then my phone rang. The sound made all three of us jump. I glanced at the screen. Unknown number. Normally I would have ignored it. Something told me not to. I answered. Hello? For several seconds there was only breathing. Then an elderly woman's voice spoke. Soft. Careful. Almost trembling. Is this Emily Parker? Yes. The woman inhaled sharply. Oh my goodness. My stomach dropped. Who is this? Silence. Then 6 words that made my blood run cold. I've been looking for you. My grip tightened around the phone. The room disappeared. Daniel. Beth. The cookbook. Everything faded into the background. All I could hear was the voice on the other end. I've been looking for you. The elderly woman sounded emotional. Almost relieved. As if she'd spent years searching. Maybe decades. My throat felt dry. Who is this? A shaky breath. My name is Margaret Dawson. Nothing. The name meant absolutely nothing to me. Yet something about her voice unsettled me. Why are you looking for me? Silence. Then. Because your mother promised me she would tell you the truth. Every muscle in my body froze. The truth. Again. Always the truth. Every road seemed to lead back to secrets. To lies. To things buried years ago. I glanced toward Daniel and Beth. Both were staring at me. Waiting. Listening. Margaret spoke again. Emily, are you alone? No. Good. Her voice sounded relieved. Because what I have to tell you shouldn't be heard alone. My pulse hammered. I almost hung up. Part of me wanted to. Part of me wanted to throw the cookbook into a fireplace and forget everything. But another part. A stronger part. Needed answers. Tell me. A long pause. Then. Your mother wasn't supposed to raise you. The room tilted. What? You were supposed to come home with me. My knees nearly gave out. What are you talking about? Margaret's voice broke. I was there that day. That day. The accident. The child who died. The note. My mind raced. Margaret. My voice shook. What day? When she answered, everything changed. The lake. 3 hours later we were driving. The address Margaret gave us was nearly 2 hours outside the city. A quiet rural town I'd never visited before. Rain hammered the windshield. Nobody spoke much. Daniel drove. Beth sat in the back. I sat beside him clutching the cookbook. The pages felt heavier now. Like they contained explosives instead of recipes. Eventually Daniel broke the silence. You don't have to do this. I laughed softly. You still think I can stop? No. He stared at the road. I think we're all afraid of what comes next. That made 3 of us. Margaret's house sat at the end of a gravel road. Small. White. Surrounded by old oak trees. The kind of house that felt frozen in time. The porch light glowed despite the afternoon sun. As if she'd been waiting. When we stepped out of the car, the front door opened immediately. An elderly woman emerged. Late 70s. Maybe older. Gray hair. Kind eyes. The second she saw me, she started crying. Not politely. Not quietly. Real tears. Years of them. Oh my God. She covered her mouth. Oh my God. I stopped walking. Something about her reaction frightened me. She looked at me the way grieving people look at photographs. As if seeing a ghost. Then she whispered. You look exactly like her. My stomach dropped. Like who? Her answer came immediately. My daughter. Silence. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Margaret slowly sat on the porch swing. Like her legs could no longer support her. Then she pointed toward the empty seat beside her. Please. I sat. The others remained standing. Watching. Waiting. Margaret wiped her eyes. Then finally spoke. The child who died at the lake was my daughter. The words slammed into me. Hard. Fast. Mercilessly. What? Her name was Lily. I couldn't process it. Nothing made sense. Margaret continued. She and you were best friends. A strange sensation rushed through me. Like a distant memory trying to surface. A little girl. Dark hair. A yellow swimsuit. Laughter. Then gone. The image vanished before I could grab it. Margaret noticed. You remember something. I don't know. Her eyes filled again. You were 5. 5. The same age mentioned in Mom's note. The accident. The forgotten trauma. Everything connected. Margaret reached inside a nearby box. Then handed me a photograph. The second I saw it, my heart stopped. 2 little girls stood beside a lake. Smiling. Holding hands. One was clearly me. The other girl looked familiar. Painfully familiar. Like a face buried deep inside my mind. Lily. Margaret nodded. She adored you. My eyes blurred. Something terrible was coming. I could feel it. Like thunder before a storm. Then Margaret revealed the part that shattered everything. The accident wasn't an accident. The world went silent. Daniel stepped forward immediately. What? Margaret looked at him. Then back at me. It was covered up. Covered up. The phrase echoed through my skull. What do you mean? She inhaled deeply. Slowly. Carefully. As if she'd rehearsed this moment for years. The police closed the case. Case? They ruled it an accident. The fear in her eyes told a different story. Margaret looked directly at me. Then spoke the words that changed my life forever. Your father was supposed to be watching both of you. The air left my lungs. No. He left you alone. My chest tightened. No. He was drinking. I felt sick. Actually sick. The room blurred. The porch. The trees. Everything. Margaret continued. While he was gone, Lily fell into the water. A sob escaped her. I found her too late. Tears streamed down her face. I couldn't move. Couldn't think. Couldn't breathe. Because suddenly I understood. The reason Mom protected Dad. The reason she lied. The reason the cookbook existed. The reason my father never wanted the truth revealed. The accident wasn't random. His negligence killed a child. A child who should have grown up. Gone to college. Fallen in love. Had children. Lived. Instead. She died. And my family buried the truth. For 32 years. Then Margaret reached into the box again. This time she removed a sealed envelope. Yellow with age. My mother's handwriting covered the front. To Emily. When you're finally ready. My hands trembled. The entire porch fell silent. Margaret looked at me sadly. I think you're ready now. I slowly opened the envelope. Inside was a single letter. And one photograph. The photograph slipped into my lap first. The moment I saw it, I forgot how to breathe. Because standing beside my mother was a teenage girl. A teenage girl who looked exactly like me. Not similar. Not close. Exactly. And written on the back were 4 words. The photograph slipped from my fingers. It landed face up on the porch floor. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The world seemed to stop turning. I stared at the teenage girl beside my mother. The same eyes. The same smile. The same chin. The same face. My face. A cold wave crashed through my body. I looked up at Margaret. Then at Daniel. Then Beth. Neither of them understood what they were seeing. Honestly. Neither did I. My sister? The words barely escaped my lips. Margaret nodded slowly. Tears filled her eyes again. Her name is Grace. My heart pounded. No. I looked down at the photo. No. Because if Grace was my sister, then everything I thought I knew about my family was wrong. Again. The letter in my hand suddenly felt heavier than the cookbook itself. My mother's final secret. Maybe her biggest one. With trembling fingers, I unfolded the pages. And began to read. Emily. If you've reached this letter, then you've learned about Lily. And if you've learned about Lily, then you've learned what your father did. I closed my eyes. Pain shot through my chest. Dad had died 7 years earlier. A heart attack. At the time I mourned him. Now I didn't know what to feel. Mom's words continued. For years I blamed your father. Then I blamed myself. Then I blamed fate. None of it changed what happened. Nothing brought Lily back. Nothing healed Margaret. Nothing healed you. My vision blurred. I continued. But Lily's death wasn't the only reason our family became a house of secrets. The next sentence nearly stopped my heart. Grace is your sister. And she is also your daughter. The porch exploded into chaos. What? Beth shouted. Daniel stumbled backward. Margaret burst into tears. I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. The words swam before my eyes. My daughter? That was impossible. Completely impossible. I had never been pregnant. Never had a child. Never. Then realization struck. Like lightning. A memory. A terrible memory. Fragments. Broken pieces. A hospital. Pain. Doctors. My mother crying. Voices. Darkness. I remembered. Not everything. Just enough. The accident. The lake. The aftermath. Months later. The surgeries. The treatments. The things nobody ever talked about. My hand shook violently. I returned to the letter. Desperate for answers. The accident caused more injuries than we told you. You suffered damage that required emergency surgery. The doctors warned that having children later in life might be impossible. I remember sitting in a hospital room while you slept. You were only 5 years old. I promised myself I would never let you carry that burden. Especially after everything else. Tears streamed down my face. I read faster. Years later, when you turned 16, you fell in love with a boy named Ryan. You were young. Scared. And pregnant. The world disappeared. I remembered Ryan. My first love. The boy who moved away. The boy Mom always hated discussing. The boy who vanished from family conversations completely. My hands trembled. No. 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 The letter continued. You wanted to keep the baby. Your father refused. He believed it would ruin your future. I begged him to reconsider. He wouldn't listen. My heart shattered. A terrible feeling formed inside me. Like standing on the edge of an abyss. Then came the sentence. The sentence that destroyed everything. After Grace was born, your father arranged a private adoption without your consent. The porch fell silent. I couldn't breathe. The words blurred through tears. Without your consent. Without your consent. Without your consent. Over and over. Again. And again. And again. The sentence echoed inside my skull. My father had given away my child. I broke. Completely. Years of grief. Years of confusion. Years of secrets. Everything exploded at once. A sob tore from my chest. The kind that comes from somewhere ancient. Somewhere deep. Somewhere wounded. Beth immediately wrapped her arms around me. Then Daniel. For the first time in years, all three of us held each other. Not as adults. As children. Broken children. Trying to survive the truth. Margaret quietly waited. Giving us time. Giving us space. Eventually I wiped my eyes and returned to the letter. One page remained. One final page. My mother's last words. For 21 years I searched for Grace. Your father never told me where she went. After he died, I finally found her. I wanted to tell you. Every day I wanted to tell you. But I was afraid. Afraid you would hate me. Afraid you would hate him. Afraid the truth would destroy what little remained of our family. I was wrong. Secrets destroy families. Truth gives them a chance to heal. I finally located Grace 2 years ago. I showed her photographs. I told her stories. I told her everything. And then she asked me one question. The words blurred through tears. What was the question? I continued reading. She asked. Does my mother know I exist? My heart broke all over again. The final lines followed. I told her no. She cried. Then she asked if she could meet you someday. If you're reading this. That day has finally arrived. Look behind the last recipe. She's waiting. Love forever. Mom. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The wind rustled through the trees. The porch creaked softly beneath us. Slowly. I opened the cookbook. Turned to the final recipe. Apple pie. Mom's favorite. Behind the page sat another envelope. This one newer. Sealed. My hand shook as I opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper. A phone number. And 6 handwritten words. Hi Mom. I've been waiting too. For several seconds I simply stared. Then I laughed. Not because anything was funny. Because after everything. After all the lies. After all the pain. After all the years. There was finally something left. Hope. Real hope. The kind that survives storms. The kind that survives secrets. The kind that survives families. Margaret gently squeezed my shoulder. She lives 3 hours away. I looked up. What if she hates me? Margaret smiled sadly. She doesn't. How do you know? A tear rolled down her cheek. Because she asked about you every single year. I closed my eyes. 37 years. Gone. Stolen. Lost. But not forever. I stood. Clutched the phone number. And for the first time since Mom died, I felt something other than grief. I felt possibility. The cookbook hadn't destroyed my family. It had exposed it. And somehow, that was the beginning of healing. I looked toward the horizon. Toward a future I never imagined. Then I whispered the words my daughter had waited 21 years to hear. Let's go meet Grace.